folks, welcome back to Time Out Kitchen. Today, as you might have guessed, we're going to be making some absolutely amazing chili. It is perfect for the football season. It's also very good as the weather gets colder, which is kind of happening. So guys, if you didn't notice behind me, we have a ton of different ingredients. Now the reason for that is that this chili just needs a lot of prep. We got some onions, we'll have some garlic, we'll have a bunch of different powders. There's a lot of stuff. But don't be scared, they come together really nicely and really quickly in our pot of chili. Now all you have to do is give it a little bit of time. But guys, all that extra time will do us a lot of good, because if you've ever had chili, you ever notice how the next day it always seems to somehow taste better? Well, that's because all those flavors get to mellow out a bit, so if you had something that was maybe a bit too spicy, for instance, it'll just have a bit more of a well-rounded flavor. Now, with all that being said, guys, if you are enjoying any of the content on the channel, please feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out a lot, and I do appreciate it. So that is enough chit-chat. Let's get through the ingredients. But before that, B-roll. Alright folks, with that beautiful B-roll out of the way, let's cover all of these beautiful ingredients that you're going to need to make yourself a delicious homemade chili. Now you can see we've got a lot of ingredients, but we're going to start with our can of diced tomatoes. Now you could replace this with a can of tomato puree, but in any case here we are using a 128 ounce can, and I like to use the diced tomatoes because it adds a lot of texture. You'll also need 1 can of kidney beans. Now, you could use other beans if you like, but these are just classic in my opinion, and some chilies don't have beans, but I believe these are a must, so go ahead and grab yourself some kidney beans. You also want to grab yourself 1 can of tomato paste, followed by 1 large white onion. And if you don't have one that's about this size, you can always use 2 small ones as needed. For some color and texture, you're going to want to grab yourself 1 green bell pepper, as well as its red counterpart, the red bell pepper. And continuing down the line of peppers, we also are going to want to grab ourselves 1 or 2 jalapeno peppers. Now guys, you can remove the seeds if you like. I keep them in because I like the flavor and I like that additional spice, but do as you must. A non-optional ingredient is some fresh garlic. Now you can use 3 or 4 cloves, the whole head, whatever you like, but get yourself some fresh garlic. Now, it wouldn't be much of a chili if we didn't have some ground beef, so go ahead and grab yourself 600 grams of lean ground beef. Now, you can always add more if you plan on having more guests or if you just want a lot of leftovers. Up next, you'll want to grab yourself about 200 grams of white mushrooms. And in this case, guys, this is an optional ingredient because I know some people aren't a big fan of mushrooms, but in my case, we'll be using 200 grams because I do enjoy them quite a bit. Now this covers the basics for our fresh ingredients, so go ahead and move these all off to the side. If you can just get your hands around, there we go, and off we go to the side, where we're then going to realize we forgot to show you guys our stock. So you're going to want to grab yourself 1 bouillon cube of beef stock, or chicken stock, or veggie stock, whatever you have around. Ideally, either beef or mushroom stock is the way to go. So now that we've covered the majority of our ingredients, we're going to move to the spice mixture. Now this is the mixture that we're going to add to the chili to give it that very, well, comforting and familiar flavor. So to do that, you're going to need all the spices that you see here. And don't worry if you don't have these guys, so long as you've got chili powder and garlic powder, you can usually get away with a pretty good chili. So naturally, the foundation of our chili is going to be, well, chili powder, and we're going to be using about 2 to 3 tablespoons of this chili powder in our mixture, followed by about 1 large tablespoon of garlic powder. To that, you'll add another large tablespoon of chipotle powder. That you will add the totally optional ancho powder. We're gonna use about 1 tablespoon, but it just adds a nice subtle flavor from the dried poblano peppers, and I really think it goes well with a chili that you're making at home. Next, to add a bit of warmth, we're gonna add a little hit of cinnamon. About 1 teaspoon should do, but you can add a little bit less or a little bit more depending on your taste. Similar to the cinnamon, we're going to use a tiny bit of allspice as well. We're going to use, again, about a half teaspoon here. This just adds a little bit more roundness and warmth to the complexity of the flavors that we're building in the spice mixture. Finally, we're going to add about a half a teaspoon of ground coriander. Now, this has a nice brightness to it that I think really balances out some of the deeply flavored spices that we're using for the chili. But again, if you don't have it, guys, this is completely optional. So with our spices covered, just go ahead and clear your table and let's get started with the prep. So in a small bowl, go ahead and mix in 2 heaping tablespoons of your chili powder before adding in 1 heaping teaspoon of your garlic powder. And if you have some kicking around, you're going to go ahead and add your ancho powder to this. About a half tablespoon should do the trick. Next, you'll sprinkle in approximately half a teaspoon of cinnamon powder, followed by a half a teaspoon of coriander powder. You'll then grab your allspice and then go ahead and throw in a half teaspoon of that as well. Oh, and don't forget to season with some kosher salt and some freshly ground black pepper. With all our spices in the bowl, it is time to give this a quick mix and make sure that you break down any chunks that you might have in the garlic or any of the other powders. Essentially, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. So go ahead and move that to the side because it's time to prep the rest of our ingredients. So grab your bell pepper, in this case the green one, take the top and the bottom off before cutting through the flesh and unrolling the pepper. This is a very easy way, guys, to get rid of all those seeds. Then just cut your pepper into thin lengthwise strips before going ahead and cutting that across into small little cubes. Then you're simply going to repeat the exact same process with your red bell pepper. Again, cutting lengthwise into long strips before then cutting across to get small little cubes that will be perfect for our chili. That done, it's time to grab your onion and we'll be doing something very similar. So cut this in half, go ahead and give this a couple of quick slices before flattening your knife and cutting horizontally, making sure not to cut all the way through. This will then let us cut through very quickly so we have a nice even dice on our onion. Next, grab one of your jalapeno peppers, cut the top off, and then cut this lengthwise down the middle. We're going to then do the same thing we did with our bell peppers, cut lengthwise before cutting this into small little pieces. With our second jalapeno, we're simply going to cut this into thin slices. This is going to act as our garnish, guys. It's going to look really nice on top, and it's also going to add a nice kick of heat. Once you finish slicing up your garnish, go ahead and transfer this to a little ramekin and put this off to the side. Because it's time to deal with our garlic, so go ahead and smash these cloves into pieces. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but go ahead and hit them and slice through your garlic once and then pass through a second time, finally dicing this up. You want a pretty fine dice here, guys, or you could simply use a garlic press if you have one. With our garlic neatly processed, it's time to move on to our mushrooms. For these, just cut them lengthwise into nice thin pieces. It's going to look like a lot of mushrooms, but don't worry, guys, this will cook down and you'll just be left with a nice bit of mouthfeel from the mushrooms as well as a bit more volume in your chili. With your mushrooms cut down to size, our prep is basically done and you should have a plate of veggies that looks something like this. So let's move that to the side and get working on our beef. So transfer your beef into a large bowl like so and begin to add about half of your spice mixture. Now, I like to add the spice mixture before I start cooking just because I want to make sure I coat it rather evenly, and that way the spices don't actually burn in the pan or they get caught up in some of the grease from the cooking process. You'll notice here I'm also mixing with my hand, which I like to do, but you can use any tool that you have available. Once thoroughly incorporated, go ahead and move this bowl of meat to the side because it is time to reveal our secret ingredient, which is a pint of Guinness. Now, of course, this is a stout, so find yourself any stout. It doesn't have to be Guinness or any dark beer that you like. They add a ton of complexity and depth and color to your chili, and you will not regret adding this to your mix. And if you don't believe me, maybe I'll let the Guinness do the talking. Okay, so I'm not a professional pourer of Guinness, but as you can see, guys, this is going to add a ton of color and flavor to our chili, and I highly recommend you grab yourself a, well, nice Guinness, and don't forget to give it a little taste test, just in case. Anyways, put that beer aside because it is time to open some cans. And naturally, we're going to start with our tomato paste, so go ahead and, well, start opening. So while we're opening these cans, I do have a request from you guys, which is to point me to a can opener that doesn't suck, because this one's terrible and I need a new one. In any case, with your cans opened, it is time to move to the stove. So grab yourself a large pot and drop in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So this pan is on a medium-high heat. Just make sure that you let this oil come to temperature. You should see some white little wisps of smoke, and when you do, that is your cue to then go ahead and add your beef. Then simply mix the beef around until you have a nice brown color. Now, important to note here is that this does not need to be cooked all the way through. This can continue to cook in the chili, so just make sure you get some nice color on your beef, and it should look something a little bit like this. So go ahead and strain the beef out in a colander before bringing the pot back onto the heat, because it's time to add some mushrooms. So go ahead and add your sliced mushrooms to the pot, and then give this a quick mix. Now, mushrooms release a lot of water, it just takes a little bit of time, so be patient, but just keep mixing this around until you have something that looks a little bit like this. Now, it's a little bit hard to see because of all that steam, but basically your mushroom should have a little bit of a translucent appearance, and that's the perfect time to add the rest of our ingredients. To start, we're gonna add our jalapenos, onions, and garlic. Once those are in the pot, give this a quick stir, and we're going to cook this down until the onions are translucent. Once they're translucent, like you can see here, it is time to add the remainder of our bell peppers. So go ahead and dump the rest of your red and green peppers in. For peppers in the pot, go ahead and give this a quick stir, and you can really begin to appreciate the color and texture that these bell peppers are going to lend to this chili. Oh, and don't forget to season as you go. We are building some layers here, so go ahead and add 2 pinches of sea salt before grabbing your beef, which we're gently going to add to the mixture, or just gonna all fall in like that, that's fine. Give this a quick mix before you add your tomato paste. Now, in hindsight, I would probably have put the tomato paste along with our garlic and our other vegetables, but this will work just fine. So go ahead and add that can, give this a quick mix, and let that tomato paste begin to cook down. Once you're satisfied with the color and the cooked downness of your tomato paste, go ahead and add the rest of your spices. This is going to give it a nice hit of flavor, but we do want to kind of toast these a little bit along with the rest of our ingredients, so go ahead, give us yet another mix, and you should start to see a bit of texture and color that's a little bit more reminiscent of traditional chili. And speaking of texture, we're going to add that can of diced tomatoes. Again, you can use pureed tomatoes if you want, or some can of tomato sauce without any additional flavors. It's really up to you, but I like the texture that this brings to the dish. With the tomatoes in, you're going to stir for about the 100th time here and make sure that you incorporate everything nicely into the pot. At this point, you can add in your cube of beef stock before reaching for our secret ingredient, 1 pint of Guinness. Don't worry about that cube of beef stock, it will dissolve as you mix and add liquids. Now give this a quick stir, making sure that you get that bouillon cube to dissolve before adding in about a cup of water. Now you can see our chili looks a little bit watery here, but that's okay because we're going to add our kidney beans and let this cook down. The kidney beans will add a bit of starch to this water, and that'll help thicken up everything nicely. With the kidney beans thoroughly incorporated, go ahead and put this on low heat and put your lid on top. Give it a couple of taps for good luck, and it's time to wait for a few hours. In this case, after about an hour and 45 minutes, you should have a chili that looks like this. A beautiful, rich color, thick chili, and a wonderful aroma coming off of this pot, guys. So all that's left is to plate. And I guess we shouldn't say plate, we should probably say bowl. So go ahead and grab your chili bowl, place that in the center, and go ahead and show off what this looks like, because this is a very well-rounded pot of chili. So into your bowl, place about 2 or 3 or 4 scoops, depending on the size of the bowl and how hungry you are, before grabbing our garnishes, which is going to include a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese, which we will lay a nice pinch of right in the center. You'll then want to grab your thinly sliced raw jalapenos and put that in the bowl as well, as artistically as you can, in this case vertically, because that's as far as I could get, before adding some sour cream or some Greek yogurt, whatever you like. In this case, I'm using some sour cream, just putting a little dollop there on the side. And lastly but not leastly, some delicious crunchy corn tortilla chips. You don't have to make the presentation quite as fancy, you could literally just take these corn chips and crush them and sprinkle them over top, and that would be just fine. In any case, you should have a delicious looking bowl of chili with some color, some texture, and a ton of flavor. I mean, look at that. Look at the color. Look at the texture. This is a chili that is perfect for a cold day or for football Sunday. And I truly think this is a perfect bite. Lots of texture, lots of flavor, and it is just, yeah, it is delicious. I mean, I don't know what else to say, guys. You gotta try this recipe. It has so much flavor, and you could eat bowl after bowl after bowl. And it even goes well on a chip, or with bread, or just with a spoon, or your hands, or whatever. I mean, it is that good, guys. I ate probably 2 or 3 bowls of this in one sitting. I promise you, this is the perfect cold weather meal. This will not disappoint, and you will absolutely go back for seconds. And there you go, guys. There is our secret ingredient chili done, and just in time because football is on and I don't want to miss it. So until next time, and as always, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.